He was about to lose billions to hackers until the pizza girl hacked back and saved his fortune. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us get back to our main character. The night was stormy over downtown Seattle. Inside the 25th floor of Cyberattack Technologies, alarms were screaming, screens flashing red, numbers on the stock monitor were dropping by the second. Ethan Cross, the 34-year-old billionaire CEO, stood frozen in disbelief as his company's accounts were being drained in real time. "Shut it down," he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Disconnect every server now." But it was too late. The hackers had already taken control of the system. Years of innovation, billions in intellectual property, everything he built with his own hands gone within minutes. His chief engineer slammed the keyboard in frustration. "They are inside every layer of the firewall." "We cannot stop them, sir." Ethan's jaw tightened. Sweat rolled down his temple. The company was supposed to go public tomorrow morning. Losing the network tonight meant losing everything: his reputation, his investors, even the family legacy he had sworn to protect. Then a small sound broke the tension. The elevator dinged. Everyone turned toward the door as it slid open, revealing a young woman in a soaked red jacket holding a pizza box. Her name tag read Lena, pizza delivery for Cyberattack, she asked, voice uncertain. No one answered. The room was filled with panic, the glow of failing monitors painting every face in blue. Ethan frowned. "Who let her in here? This is a restricted floor." "I am sorry," Lena murmured, stepping back. But her eyes caught the code on one of the main screens. She blinked twice, recognizing a familiar pattern in the cascading lines of data. She hesitated, then spoke softly. "Excuse me, sir. That is not random code. That is a recursive loop with a false encryption shell. Whoever wrote that wants you to panic while they copy your root directory." The lead engineer turned toward her, astonished. "What did you just say?" Lena set down the pizza box. "Your command line is still open. If you reverse the loop and feed a false IP trail, you can kick them out before they finish." Ethan stared at her, stunned. "You understand what that is?" She met his eyes, steady and calm despite her soaked hair and trembling hands. "I used to study network security," she said quietly, "before I started delivering pizza." For a moment the room went silent except for the rain against the windows. Then Ethan stepped aside, motioning toward the main console. "All right then," he said, his voice lower, now edged with a mix of disbelief and hope. "Show me what you can do." Lena took a deep breath, pushed up her sleeves, and sat in front of the monitor. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat on the dark screen. She whispered to herself, "Let us see if they like being hacked back." And then she started typing. The sound of her keystrokes filled the room, steady, precise, almost musical. Lines of countercode streamed across the screen. Outside, thunder cracked. Inside, for the first time that night, hope flickered in Ethan's eyes. The storm outside grew louder as Lena's fingers danced across the keyboard. Every keystroke echoed like a heartbeat in the tense silence of the control room. The engineers stared, unable to believe what they were seeing. On the monitors, the red warning lights began to fade one by one. Code lines scrolled upward like a digital storm reversing its course. Ethan stood behind her, eyes fixed on the screens. "What are you doing?" he asked, quietly. "Redirecting the attack," Lena replied without looking up. "They left a backdoor open when they mirrored your root command. I am sending a false encryption signal. They will think they are still inside, but I am tracing them in real time." The chief engineer gasped. "That is impossible. It would take a whole team to run that kind of counter." Lena's voice stayed calm. "Then it is a good thing I am fast." The room fell silent again except for the rhythmic tapping of keys. Outside, lightning flashed through the glass walls, illuminating her focused face. Ethan watched the determination in her eyes. She did not look like a pizza delivery girl anymore. She looked like someone who belonged here. Someone who understood the language of code better than anyone in the room. On one of the monitors, a new message appeared: unauthorized intrusion detected, access denied. The system beeped twice, then the red lights turned green. Servers began to reboot, and the company logo reappeared on the central screen. "It worked," whispered the chief engineer. "She did it." Lena leaned back, exhaling for the first time in minutes. "They will not try that again." I patched the hole and traced their IP route. The attack came from a shell company in Zurich. Ethan blinked, stunned. "You traced them?" She nodded. "They were after your prototype files. Someone inside your board sold them access." The room went cold. Ethan's jaw tightened as he processed her words. His company had just been saved by a stranger who showed up with a pizza box. He turned toward her. "Lena, right?" "Yes, sir." He hesitated. "How did you know all of this?" "No one on my team could even identify the loop." Lena gave a small shrug. "I studied network security at Stanford for 2 years. My mom got sick. I had to drop out. Delivering pizza was the fastest way to pay for her treatments." Ethan stared at her, realizing she had more skill than most of his hired experts. "You should not be delivering food," he said quietly. "You should be running this department." Lena smiled faintly. "I am just glad I could help. You do not need to pay me. I just want to finish my route before it gets cold." He almost laughed at the absurdity of it all, the billionaire saved by a pizza girl who refused a reward. But before he could respond, his phone buzzed. It was a message from the board of directors demanding an explanation for the outage. He looked back at Lena. "Come with me. You are the reason this company still exists. You deserve to be in that room." She hesitated, wiping her hands nervously on her jacket. "I am not sure I belong in a board meeting." Ethan shook his head. "You do now." He led her through the glass corridor toward the main conference room where the entire executive board waited, furious and confused. As they entered, murmurs filled the air. A few people frowned at Lena's delivery uniform, but Ethan spoke before anyone could question her. "Gentlemen," he said firmly, "this is the person who just saved Cybrion from a billion-dollar collapse." Gasps rippled through the room. Lena lowered her gaze, uncomfortable under the sudden attention. Ethan turned to her and said, "Tell them what you did." She explained in simple terms how the hack worked and how she reversed it. Her calm, confident tone silenced every critic. When she finished, the oldest board member adjusted his glasses and said, "You mean to tell us?" "This young woman stopped an international cyberattack that our entire IT division failed to contain." Ethan smiled slightly. "Yes, and she did it in under 10 minutes. The room fell quiet again, but this time it was respect, not disbelief, that filled the air. Ethan turned to Lena. "You saved not just my fortune but every job in this company. I want you to stay. Help us rebuild our defenses. Name your position." Lena looked stunned. "You do not have to do that." "I do," Ethan replied. "Because people like you remind me what real genius looks like." For the first time that night she smiled fully. "Then I guess we have work to do." Outside, the rain finally stopped. The city lights shimmered through the glass as the storm faded, just like the chaos inside Cybrion. For Ethan, it was not just a night of crisis. It was the night he learned that heroes can wear delivery jackets and carry pizza boxes instead of briefcases. The next morning, the sun rose over the skyline of Seattle, turning the glass towers into waves of gold. Inside Cybrion Technologies, the air was different, quieter, almost reverent. The headlines were already spreading across every major business channel: "Billion-dollar hack, stopped by pizza delivery girl." Ethan sat in his office with a cup of black coffee, staring at the glowing screens. Dozens of emails flooded in, most filled with praise, others with disbelief. Investors wanted interviews. The board wanted to take credit. But Ethan knew exactly who deserved it. He turned to his assistant and said, "Find Lena. Bring her to me." Moments later, the elevator opened, and Lena stepped out, still wearing her delivery jacket. Her eyes were tired but calm. Ethan smiled. "You caused quite a stir out there." "I noticed," she said quietly. "People keep calling me a hacker." He laughed softly. "You are not a hacker. You are the person who stopped one." She looked down at the floor. "I just did what I knew how to do." Ethan nodded. "And that is exactly what this company needs." He walked to the window, watching the city below. "You have options now, Lena. I want to offer you a full-time position, cyber defense lead. Your own team, your own office." Lena hesitated. "I do not even have a degree. People here have doctorates and experience." Ethan turned to her, his voice steady. "Last night none of that mattered. You had courage, skill, and heart. That is what makes a real professional." For a moment she said nothing. Then she took a deep breath. "If I accept, I want one condition. I want to start an internship program for students who cannot afford college but have talent. No one should have to drop out like I did." Ethan smiled. "Deal." They shook hands, sealing a new chapter for both of them. By afternoon, the office was buzzing again. The news channels requested statements, and the hashtag number Pizza Girl Saved the CEO was trending. Employees who had once dismissed Lena now greeted her with smiles and respect. Some even asked for her autograph, but not everyone was happy. In a quiet corner of the boardroom, two executives whispered, "She embarrassed us in front of the investors. We cannot let a delivery girl become the face of this company." Their words would later spark another test for Lena's integrity. That evening, Ethan hosted a small meeting to honor his staff. As he raised his glass, he said, "Sometimes leadership means recognizing greatness in the most unexpected places." Last night reminded me that real heroes do not wait for titles, they act. The applause that followed was warm and genuine. Lena stood among the crowd, her heart full but her mind still cautious. She knew success often brought new enemies. After the event, Ethan walked her to the elevator. "You handled yourself well," he said. She smiled. "It still feels unreal. Yesterday, I was delivering pizza. Today I have an office and a team." Ethan looked at her, his tone softer now. "Maybe this is just the beginning. You turned disaster into hope, Lena. People like you build the future." As the elevator doors closed, Lena caught her reflection in the glass. The girl who once wore a delivery badge now wore confidence. Outside, the night lights flickered across the city that almost witnessed a downfall, but instead found redemption through one act of courage. The storm was over. But for both Ethan and Lena, something far greater had begun, a partnership built not on titles or wealth, but on respect earned in the heat of crisis. Weeks passed, and the story of the pizza girl who saved a billion-dollar company continued to spread across the country. Cyberion Technologies saw its stock value soar again, and Ethan Cross's image shifted from a cold CEO to a leader who recognized hidden talent. But inside the walls of the company, a quiet tension began to grow. Not everyone admired Lena. A few senior executives, bruised by embarrassment, could not accept that a former delivery girl was now leading the cyber defense division. They whispered that she was a publicity stunt, a convenient distraction to save Ethan's reputation. One of them, Director Howard Greer, a man who had been with the company for 20 years, saw Lena as a threat to his position. One afternoon, Lena walked into the conference room where Howard and two others were reviewing the security logs. The room fell silent. Howard looked up, his expression polite but cold. "Miss Rivera," he said, "you might want to double-check the new firewall patch. It is producing delays." "I already did," Lena replied evenly. "The delay is intentional. It allows us to trace the origin of any future breach." Howard smiled thinly. "Smart, but risky. One wrong move and we could be exposed again." Lena met his gaze. "One wrong move and we could lose everything again. I am not taking that chance." After she left, Howard muttered to his colleagues, "She thinks she owns the place. Let us see how long that lasts." That evening, Lena stayed late going through the company's new defense protocols. She noticed something unusual. A remote access key had been activated without her approval. Her pulse quickened. Someone inside the company was trying to reopen the same back door she had closed. She immediately called Ethan. "Ethan, there is an internal breach attempt," she said quickly. "It is coming from one of our own accounts. Who I am tracing it now." Her eyes darted across the screen. The access route led back to a private server Howard's department. Within minutes, Ethan arrived at her office. He stood behind her as she pulled up the proof timestamps, login credentials, IP history. The evidence was clear. Ethan's expression darkened. "He tried to sell our data again," he said in disbelief. Lena shook her head. "Not this time. I locked him out before he could send anything. Then we confront him tomorrow. No one betrays this company again." The next morning, the boardroom was filled with uneasy faces. Howard stood near the table, pretending confusion as Ethan entered with Lena by his side. "Howard," Ethan said firmly, "we know what you did." "I do not know what you mean," Howard protested. Lena turned on the projector displaying the login trail. "This is your department's access key. You tried to reopen the breach we shut down. You plan to sell data to the same Zurich firm that attacked us." The room erupted with murmurs. Howard's face went pale. "You cannot prove it was me," he said. "I can," Lena replied calmly. "You forgot to mask your local IP." Ethan crossed his arms. "You are finished here." Security entered the room as Howard was escorted out. The other board members sat in stunned silence. Finally, one of them spoke. "If she had not found that, we would have been destroyed again." Ethan nodded. "That is why she is the head of this division." He turned to Lena. "You just saved us twice." After the meeting, Ethan and Lena stood by the window overlooking the city. "I did not want to embarrass him," she said quietly. "But I could not let him hurt the company." "You did the right thing," Ethan replied. "Integrity matters more than loyalty to the wrong people." She looked at him, a faint smile on her lips. "It feels strange, though. 1 month ago, no one would even let me in this building. Now I am protecting it." Ethan smiled back. "Because you earned it, and because this company finally has a heart." As the day ended, the sun reflected off the skyline once again. The same city that had witnessed chaos now witnessed justice. Inside Cybrian, the culture began to shift from power to purpose, from pride to partnership. And somewhere deep down, Ethan knew this was only the beginning of something greater, because sometimes the person who saves your company is the one who ends up saving you too. Days turned into weeks, and the dust around the scandal finally settled. Howard's removal restored trust inside the company, and Cybrian began to rebuild stronger than before. Lena's reputation grew far beyond the office. She became a symbol of resilience, the woman who had turned crisis into triumph twice. But with recognition came pressure. Reporters wanted interviews. Universities invited her to speak. Some employees admired her, others envied her. Ethan noticed how she began to work late again, spending nights alone in the cyber lab, staring at endless strings of code. One evening, Ethan stopped by her office. The lights were dim except for the soft glow of the monitors. Lena was sipping cold coffee, eyes focused on a screen filled with security data. "You are still here," he said gently. She smiled faintly. "You know how it is. The internet never sleeps." He walked closer, watching her expression. "You have been running non-stop for weeks. You need a break." "I cannot," she replied. "Every time I close my eyes, I think about what could have happened if we had failed. If I had not walked in that night." Ethan paused, realizing she carried the entire company's weight on her shoulders. "Lena, you saved us. Twice. You do not have to prove anything anymore." She looked up at him. "Maybe not to you, but to myself, yes. I spent years hiding what I could do. Now that people finally see it, I cannot afford to make a mistake." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Ethan said quietly, "You remind me of myself 10 years ago. I built this company from nothing, chasing perfection until I forgot to live. Do not make the same mistake." Lena looked at him, her expression softening. Maybe that is why we understand each other. The next morning, Ethan arranged a surprise. When Lena arrived at the office, the lobby was filled with employees clapping. On the big screen behind them was the company's new announcement: Cyberion launches Open Code Initiative, empowering young innovators. Ethan stepped forward with a microphone. Today we honor the person who taught us that true genius can come from anywhere. This new initiative will provide scholarships and mentorship to young coders who cannot afford education. It was Lena's idea, and starting today she will lead it. The room erupted with applause. Lena's eyes widened in shock. She had mentioned the idea once, never expecting it to happen so soon. Ethan smiled at her. This is your legacy, Lena. You wanted to make sure others get a chance. Now they will. As she took the stage, she looked out at the crowd faces of people who once doubted her, now standing and cheering. I was just a delivery girl with a laptop, she said into the microphone. But one night, I got the chance to prove myself. I hope this program gives that same chance to someone else. Her voice trembled slightly, but the words carried strength. Ethan watched from the side, pride clear in his eyes. The applause that followed was louder than before, echoing through the building that had once been filled with panic. Later that evening, as the office emptied, Ethan found her again by the window. You gave them hope, he said. She smiled softly. No, Ethan. You gave me the chance to give it. Outside the city glowed with evening light, its skyline calm and alive. The chaos of the past months felt like a distant memory. What remained was trust, respect, and something deeper growing quietly between them, a connection built not from fortune or fame but from two people who had learned to see each other beyond titles. And for the first time, Lena felt not like a guest in that building, but like she finally belonged. Autumn arrived in Seattle with gray skies and rain that never seemed to stop. Inside Cyberion Technologies, however, the atmosphere was bright with progress. The Open Code Initiative had launched successfully, bringing in young coders from underprivileged backgrounds. Lena spent most of her days mentoring the first group of interns. Her quiet strength and patience made her the kind of leader people wanted to follow. Ethan watched from a distance, proud but contemplative. He had built many divisions in his company, but this one felt different. It had heart, purpose, and meaning. Yet as Cyberion's success grew, so did outside interest. Other corporations wanted to buy the initiative or recruit Lena away. One offer came from Zurich, the same network behind the cyberattack months earlier. When Lena saw the name on the email, she frowned. The message was simple: join us. We can give you what Cyberion never will. It was unsigned, but the tone was familiar. She immediately deleted it but felt uneasy. That night she stayed late to double-check the system. She found several silent probes trying to access their database again. The next morning she went to Ethan's office. We have a new problem, she said. Ethan looked up from his desk. Is it another breach? An attempt. Someone from Zurich tried to contact me directly. They are after the initiative this time, not the company. Ethan's expression darkened. They think you are the key. I am just a target now, she replied. But they will not stop. They know I can expose them. Ethan stood, his voice firm. Then we protect you and the program. Whatever they are planning, we stop it before it begins. Together, they reviewed the security layers late into the night. Lena moved through screens with ease, tracing digital shadows that most people would never notice. Ethan watched her work in silence, the glow from the monitors reflecting in his eyes. There was admiration there, deeper than professional respect, something he had not felt in years. At one point, she caught him staring. You are thinking too loudly, she said softly. He smiled. I was thinking how much this company owes you. Lena shook her head. You gave me a chance. I just gave back what you gave me. Suddenly an alert beeped on the screen. Unauthorized access detected. Lena's fingers flew across the keyboard. They are here again, she said, and this time they are inside the investor server. Ethan leaned forward. Can you block them? I can do more than that. Her voice grew steady, focused. She opened a traceroute, reversing the attack signal back toward the origin. The room went quiet except for the tapping of keys. Minutes later, she hit enter. The screen flashed green. "They are out," she said. "And I left them a surprise." What kind of surprise? Every line of their stolen data now contains a security watermark. If they ever try to use it, the system will expose their identity to every international cyber bureau. Ethan laughed in disbelief. "You did not just block them, you outsmarted them completely." Lena leaned back, exhausted but triumphant. "They wanted to recruit me. I just gave them their answer." The tension in the room softened. Ethan walked over and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Lena, I meant what I said before. You are not just the head of a division. You are the future of Cybrian." She looked up at him, meeting his eyes. "That is a lot to live up to." "Then I guess I will have to help you," he said. They both laughed quietly, the kind of laughter that comes after a long fight finally won. Outside, the rain had stopped. Through the tall glass windows, streaks of orange light cut through the clouds. The city below glowed with reflections from the wet streets. For the first time in months, Ethan felt peace. Lena closed her laptop and turned toward the window. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think storms were the worst thing in life, but sometimes they wash away everything fake and leave only what is real." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then maybe this was our storm." For a long moment they stood in silence, watching the lights of Seattle shimmer. The battle was over, but something new had begun between them. Something unspoken yet undeniable, built from trust, courage, and the quiet knowledge that both had found more than they were searching for. Winter settled over Seattle with cold rain and low clouds that blurred the city lights. Inside Cybrian Technologies, the warmth came not from the heaters, but from the purpose that now guided the company. The Open Code initiative had expanded to multiple cities, inspiring hundreds of young programmers to believe that their background did not define their future. Lena had become the face of that movement. She gave talks at universities, joined podcasts, and even appeared on a national news program. Yet despite the growing fame, she kept her daily routine simple, mentoring interns, writing code, and working side by side with Ethan. Still, the bond between them had changed quietly. It was no longer just professional respect. There were long glances that lasted a little too long, moments of silence that spoke more than words. Ethan had never been a man to mix emotion with business, but Lena's sincerity had broken through the walls he had built around himself. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Ethan invited Lena to the rooftop garden of the Cybrian Tower. The rain had stopped, leaving the city glowing below them. She stood near the edge, her breath visible in the cool air. "It is hard to believe how much has changed," she said softly. "A year ago, I was worried about keeping my job delivering pizza. Now we are talking about global expansion." Ethan smiled. "You earned every bit of it. You showed this company what it means to have heart." She turned to him. "So did you. You could have taken all the credit, but you shared it. That says more about you than you think." He hesitated, searching for the right words. "You reminded me that leadership is not about control. It is about trust. And somehow you made me trust again." Lena looked at him for a moment, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. "You know," she said, "for someone who used to be called the coldest CEO in the tech world, that is a big statement." He laughed quietly. "Maybe I just needed the right person to thaw the ice." Before either of them could say more, Ethan's phone buzzed. The screen flashed with a new message: Zurich firm exposed by International Cyber Task Force. Lena leaned over to look. "The watermark worked," she said, smiling with relief. "They tried to sell the stolen data, and it backfired." Ethan exhaled slowly. "Then it is finally over." "Not just over," Lena replied. "Justice finally caught up." For a long time they stood watching the city. The sound of distant traffic mixed with the soft hum of the rooftop lights. There was peace in the air, the kind that follows storms and redemption. Later that week, Cybrian hosted its annual conference. Thousands of employees filled the grand hall, and the stage lights reflected off the company's new slogan, projected above: "Innovation with Integrity." Ethan took the stage first, his voice steady and proud. This year was a test of everything we believe in, he said. We faced betrayal, crisis, and uncertainty. But one act of courage reminded us that true strength comes from honesty and heart. He turned toward the side of the stage. Lena joined me. Applause thundered through the hall as Lena walked up. She stood beside Ethan, looking out at the crowd. When I first came here, she began, I was invisible. No one saw me. But that night changed everything, not because I was special, but because someone gave me a chance. That chance became a door for hundreds of others. The audience rose to their feet, clapping. Cameras flashed, but Lena's attention was on Ethan. He smiled at her, proud and calm. After the event, they met in the quiet of the hallway. The noise of the crowd faded behind them. You did amazing, Ethan said. Lena looked down, a small blush coloring her cheeks. It felt like the end of something. He shook his head. No, Lena. It feels like the beginning. There was a pause. The silence between them was soft and certain, the kind that needed no explanation. Outside, snow began to fall, thin flakes, catching the light as they drifted past the glass walls. For Ethan and Lena, the storm that had once nearly destroyed them had turned into the season that rebuilt their lives. And somewhere in the rhythm of falling snow and city light, they both knew that this partnership born from chaos, built on trust, was about to become something even stronger. Spring came early that year, and with it came a sense of renewal that swept through Cyberion Technologies. The company's global expansion moved faster than anyone expected. Branches opened in New York, Austin, and even overseas. Yet for Ethan and Lena, success no longer meant numbers or headlines. It meant purpose. Their partnership had grown into something unspoken but unmistakable. They worked side by side, finishing each other's thoughts, understanding each other's silences. Still, both avoided naming what was quietly blooming between them. For Lena, it was gratitude, mixed with admiration. For Ethan, it was something deeper, something that made him rethink everything he once believed about life and leadership. One afternoon, Ethan walked into the innovation lab, where a group of interns surrounded Lena, laughing as she demonstrated a coding shortcut. He leaned against the doorframe, watching her with quiet pride. When she noticed him, she waved. "Come join us, boss," she teased. He smiled. "Only if you promise not to outshine me again." The interns laughed, but there was warmth in his tone that caught her off guard. Later, as the others left, Ethan stayed behind. "You know, I could never have done any of this without you," he said. Lena shook her head. "You could have. You just needed someone to remind you why you started." He looked at her, sincerity in his voice. "Then I am grateful that person was you." For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them was charged with unspoken emotion, fragile yet undeniable. Before it could break, Lena's phone buzzed, a reminder for her next mentoring session. She smiled lightly. Duty calls. Ethan nodded, watching her walk away. He realized then that the line between admiration and affection had quietly disappeared. That evening, Cyberion hosted a charity gala to celebrate the success of the Open Code initiative. The ballroom was filled with city leaders, investors, and students whose lives had changed because of the program. Lena arrived in a simple navy dress, elegant and understated. When Ethan saw her, conversation faded around him. During his speech, Ethan spoke about transformation, how the company had survived, not through wealth but through people who chose integrity over power. Then he turned toward Lena in the crowd and said, "Sometimes the person who saves your company ends up saving your heart as well." The audience applauded, thinking it was metaphorical. But Lena knew it was not. After the event, she found him on the balcony overlooking the glowing skyline. The air was cool, carrying the faint sound of city music. "That was a risky line," she said with a smile. He shrugged. "Maybe, but it was true." She looked at him, her eyes soft. "You do realize that you just confessed in front of half the city, right?" He chuckled. "Then let the other half hear it now." Before she could answer, he stepped closer. His voice was low but steady. "Lena, you walked into my world when it was falling apart. You gave me back more than a company, you gave me back my faith in people. I do not want to lose that. I do not want to lose you. She hesitated, her heart racing, then smiled through tears. You are not going to lose me, Ethan. They stood under the soft glow of the city lights. No titles, no walls. Just two people who had found each other through chaos. From that night on, the story of Cybrian was no longer just about a rescue or a company reborn. It became the story of two souls who had faced the storm together and discovered that sometimes the greatest code ever written was love itself. Months later, the story of Ethan Cross and Lena Rivera had become a quiet legend in the business world. Journalists called it the modern fairy tale of Silicon Valley, though both of them laughed whenever they heard that phrase. To them it was not a fairy tale. It was the result of sleepless nights, storms survived, and choices made with integrity instead of fear. Cybrian Technologies had grown into a global name, but its true success was measured by the hundreds of young programmers now thriving through the Open Code initiative. Every few weeks, Ethan and Lena visited different campuses to meet new students. She always spoke first, reminding them that opportunity can arrive disguised as failure. Do not underestimate yourself, she would say. Even the smallest act of courage can rewrite your story. On one such visit to a university in Boston, Lena was invited to deliver a keynote address. Ethan sat quietly in the audience, watching her with a mix of pride and admiration. Her voice carried calm confidence as she spoke about the night that changed everything. I walked into a building to deliver pizza, she said, smiling, and ended up finding my purpose instead. I was not a hero. I was just someone who refused to walk away when I saw a problem I could fix. The students erupted in applause, many of them visibly inspired. When she finished, Ethan joined her on stage to announce a new expansion of the program, one that would offer free cybersecurity education for veterans and single parents trying to restart their lives. It was her idea, and he made sure the world knew it. That night, as they walked through the quiet streets of Boston, Lena looked up at the city lights reflecting off the Charles River. It feels like another lifetime, she said softly. Sometimes I still cannot believe how far we have come. Ethan smiled. You earned every step of it. The world just caught up with you. She stopped walking, looking at him. And what about you, Ethan? You changed too. The man I met that night was fighting a war with himself. Now you look at peace. He nodded, his voice gentle. Because I found someone worth fighting for. For a moment, the noise of the city faded, leaving only the wind and the rhythm of their steps. It was in that quiet space that Ethan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small and metallic. Lena froze when she saw it, a silver key with a blue ribbon tied around it. What is this? She asked. He smiled. It is not what you think. It is not a proposal. At least not yet. She laughed through the surprise. Then what is it? It is the master key to the new Cybrian headquarters. I want you to have it. From the start, this company was built on innovation, but you reminded me that compassion and honesty are what keep it alive. I want you to lead the next generation of this place with me. Lena looked at the key, then at him, her eyes bright with emotion. You are serious. Completely, he said. We have been partners in every battle that mattered. It is only right we build the future together. She took the key slowly, her fingers brushing against his. Then I guess this makes it official. Partners for real, he smiled. Partners for real. Back in Seattle a few weeks later, Cybrian held its 5-year anniversary gala. The company's success was undeniable, but the most moving moment of the evening came when Ethan called Lena to the stage. The crowd fell silent as he handed her a framed plaque engraved with the words, "For the one who turned code into courage." Lena stood at the microphone, voice steady but full of feeling. Courage is not about being fearless, she said. It is about standing up when everything tells you to sit down. I learned that the night I walked into this building, and I have been learning it every day since. The applause rose again, echoing across the glass walls. Cameras flashed, but Ethan's eyes never left her. When the celebration ended, they stepped outside together into the cool night air. Seattle's skyline shimmered with 1,000 reflections, just as it had that first stormy night when their worlds collided. Lena looked at him with a quiet smile. Do you ever think about how it all started all the time? Ethan said. One wrong delivery, one desperate night, and somehow it brought me exactly what I did not know I needed. She leaned closer, her voice soft. And now, he said, taking her hand, I do not just have a company. I have a life I am proud of. They stood there as the city lights stretched endlessly before them, two people who had met by chance and built something extraordinary together. No titles, no pretense, just faith, hard work. And a story that proved that even in a world of machines and money, humanity could still lead the way. And as the night wind swept across the rooftop, carrying the sounds of the city below, Ethan whispered, sometimes the best things in life do not come from power or luck. They come from kindness that refuses to give up. Lena smiled, her hand still in his. Then I guess we both got lucky. Their laughter echoed against the skyline, a promise carried into tomorrow, the final proof that love, integrity, and courage were still the strongest code of all.